Hey guys, this is the first video for the next module. We're moving into sort of fundamentals of the bargaining process itself, how bargaining units are created and constructed, and what bargaining agents are, and looking at the politics of the issue. I'd asked you to look at chapters 4 and 5 of the text, Carney and Marischal. Now, the first part of it, the chapter deals with the politics of collective bargaining in the public sector because it's very, very different than the reality in the private sector. The private sector is straightforward economic bargaining for the most part. The public sector is very different. You have unions that are designed to advance social causes, and they use their bargaining strategy to do just that. They're also intensely involved in politics because government is funded through the political process. If you want to get a pay raise or improve your benefits, it generally has to be done through some sort of legislative process. So you've got to financially support legislators. That's the name of the game. You want to get your people elected. You want to get the people that you do elect to support the proposals that you're trying to advance for your members, and you're generally trying to create a climate that's sort of conducive to reasonable working relations with management. In the private sector, entirely different. It's flat out, duke it out negotiation. So it's much more sophisticated, much more complicated in the public sector. And it's more complicated for a variety of reasons. One should be very common for those of you that live in the area, and particularly in San Bernardino, is the role of public employee organizations is very, very significant in local electoral politics. If you are running for a city council or you're running for the board of supervisors, generally speaking, you would like to have the police association on your side, the police benevolent association, the sheriff's association, or if you're in the same situation, you'd like to have the firefighters. You may like to have the teachers union behind you. Now, at the local level, at the city level, there's specific groups of people that vote at extraordinarily high levels. Police, teachers, and fire. They have an incredibly high turnout of their members. So what happens is you're running for the city council and you make a pitch to the local union, support me because I'm interested in this, or I'm interested in supporting you guys for that. And the union will do a couple of things. If it supports you, it can support you financially, which is a good deal from your point of view, but it also supports you in ways that don't show up. One is that manning phone banks. I've spent many hours of my life on the phone to lists of registered voters, asking them to support a particular candidate because generally we like them. And that's unpaid work, it's volunteer stuff, it doesn't show up on anybody's books, but it's extraordinarily important at the local government level. And because there's such a high turnout of specific members, because there's such a low turnout generally, there's tremendous influence on local politics on the part of, tremendous influence by public employee unions, particularly the protective services, police and fire. Other organizations are less likely to be quite as dominant. It's a very bad thing for a city council to have the police all show up in their uniforms and to protest about something at a city council meeting. It's very bad publicity for the members of the council because it will play in the newspapers, and people and the local citizenry will see about this. In some cases, you'll see police putting up billboards saying support proposition that or elect so-and-so, or most of you have probably gotten flyers from elected politicians saying, here's a list of the sponsors, and generally speaking, you're going to have, if it's the sheriff's, you're going to have the Sheriff's Association sponsorship of a particular candidate, or the fire department sponsorship of a particular candidate. So the politics of the collective bargaining process is very, very different. The structure is also different. Generally speaking, the work in the public sector requires higher levels of education. Most of the lower level jobs have now been privatized, or they've been contracted out, and most cities now are only hiring people to sort of manage and control. Some cities still directly deliver the services, but for the most part, what you're seeing is that they manage and direct and organize. They they steer rather than row, is the Republican Party phrase from the Reagan era. And so that means you're dealing with different types of background of employees. They tend to be well educated. They tend to be fairly settled in their life. They are not flitting from job to job. So the types of things that they're interested in negotiating are somewhat different than the nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes really, of the private sector unions. Public employee unions want different sorts of things. They want education benefits. They may want more money in retirement. They may be prepared to put more money into daycare or a variety of healthcare operations. They may have deferred compensation. So they negotiate different sorts of things. In the collective bargaining process, of course, you have normally two parties. In the public sector, you have three. You have the association, you have the management, and you have the general public who may or may not want to get involved. But generally speaking, the general public has access to a very, very large amount of information about what's going on in negotiations. For example, a union must sunshine its proposals. That is, it must very upfront, it must put out a list of its demands and make it absolutely clear about what they're doing, and that's all they can do. They can't add to that stuff after that list has been posted. So the public is a player, and you get letter writing campaigns saying opposing this issue or opposing that issue or supporting it, all depending on what the local politics of the issue is. So you have the nature of the work, you have the role of politics. The financial setting is also kind of important. In the private sector, you have a situation that if wage levels get too high, not that it's going to happen anytime soon, by the way, guys, but if wage levels were to get too high, business could decide to go either cease to exist or to ship their work to Mexico, although Mexico is now becoming a little too expensive for some types of manufacturing. So it goes to some third world country where the wage costs are significantly lower. It's extraordinarily difficult to shut down public services. You can contract some of them out, or you can privatize them. Some cities have private transportation facilities. Other cities have public transportation facilities. But we tend not to want to contract out certain core functions. Police and fire are being a very, very significant one. Although with police, the reality is that private security rent-a-cops are now 10 times more common than sworn police officers. But we tend to turn a blind eye to that. There have been efforts, as you know, to privatize some fire departments, and that hasn't gone anywhere. So that end of it's probably not going to happen that much. So you can't just ship them away. You can't close it down. One of the other ways where they're trying to reduce the influence of the public employee associations in education, where charter schools, which are essentially non-union schools, are coming in and trying to compete with union schools to provide educational services. So it's a constant battle. It's never quite clear where the margins and the edges of those battles are, but it does not end. So that's the first part of looking at this thing. In the next video, I'll talk about the process that you actually have to